Now, Saudi Arabia is pressing ahead with its deadly airstrikes against Yemen as the kingdom's military aggression is about to now enter its third year. In the latest air raids, warplanes bombed the port city of Hodeidah, killing 7 people. Yemeni media said that 8 others were also wounded in the airstrikes, which targeted a fishing boat. Riyadh launched its military campaign against Yemen back in March of 2015. Aggression has so far killed well over 12,000 people, many of them women and children. And now we're going to swing back over to Washington. We're joined by Mr. Michael Springman, author and former U.S. diplomat. Hello, sir, and thank you for joining us on the program once again. Now, Mr. Springman, your thoughts on Saudi Arabia's continued targeting of civilians in Yemen, especially in port cities where the UN, I'm sure you've heard, has warned that if the Saudi blockade of the nation continues, disease and famine will further ravage the country to unmentionable proportions.
Well, that's exactly right. 80% of the population in Yemen needs humanitarian assistance. And the Saudis, by bombing the port, by bombing fishing boats, are going to ensure that this number, or this percentage, climbs still higher. In spite of the fact that the war in Yemen is costing the Saudis dearly, they've spent $180 billion, United States dollars, over the last 3 years for the war against Yemen. They're spending $175 million a month for their air campaign and $500 million a month for their ground campaign in the country. It's forced them to sell assets in Europe, and it's twisting the Saudi economy, which is really based on oil and services and not much else. And 80% of the workers in the country are foreigners. And the war has cost them dearly, and has cost the Saudi population dearly, because the government, to keep spending money on Yemen for its military, it's $87 billion a year in government expenditures, is greater than that of Russia. It's greater than that of the United Kingdom. And the people are losing subsidies for gasoline, for water, for salaries, for houses, for all sorts of things. And yet the economy is something not really much in the minds of the Saudi government. They're focused on destroying Yemen, presumably so they can have a control of the gateway to the Red Sea, like the British did in the 19th century. And presumably they can get more deeply involved in the Horn of Africa, which is beyond belief. I don't know why these people are doing this.
And with respect to the disproportionate civilian population that's getting massacred by Saudi warplanes, and there's been growing opposition out of London and Washington to stop arming Riyadh in this bombing campaign or selling weapons to Saudi Arabia. But yet the majority of lawmakers are still supporting the sales of arms to the Saudis. How come neither country is worried about implications in war crimes?
Well, they know that they won't be prosecuted for war crimes. The American government has exempted itself from the International Criminal Court for fear of its leaders being targeted and hauled before the halls of justice, just as Slobodan Milosevic and other people have been. The Americans and the British know that they will simply do as they please because it's good money. The Saudis are the world's largest importer of arms in the world now. And Britain and the United States simply don't care about the opinion of the rest of the world, except on the surface, except where it counts, except where they can make political gain. But when it comes to human rights, when it comes to real human rights, with 12,000 people dead in 3 years, many of them women and children, the Americans just don't care. The British don't care. They much prefer to earn their blood money from the Saudis and other countries, and say, well, we're not going to stand before any court in the world because we have immunity, because we refuse to submit ourselves to any kind of court, but we sure like to have other people hold in front of these courts whom we don't like.
Thank you much, Mr. Michael Spring, once again for your contribution to the program, author and former U.S. diplomat, joining us out of Washington.